Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of EP Live. This rundown is going out to Jeff Mock. What a great name. Vic, I love watching those classic episodes with my buddies at our local multiplayer meetups. Please keep uploading more of them. We will. We've been super busy, but there's something that I want to tell you guys. I guess I'll do it right now, and then I'll do a follow-up video. I've been having a real rethink about our classic content. I've been uploading everything, and we've been getting to them as often as we can, and we love the feedback and everything, but I feel like there is something much bigger that we should do with this, and I'm kind of feeling like we should have a sponsor for the classic episodes so that we can say Classic EP and Classic Reviews in the Run and Judgment Day brought to you by, but I also feel like we should be committing to getting everything up there, and in order to do that, we need some funding. We need to be able to spend some money to get the gear that we're going to need and put the people on it that we're going to be able to archive it and get it all up there. So I'm really thinking maybe doing a crowdfunding project to see if people would be interested in helping us archive all of that content. Let me know what you think about that. If you've got some ideas as well that I'm not even thinking of how we get all of that stuff up. It doesn't have to be all at once. I just want it to be in a very steady stream, and I want every single thing that we have done starting with the episodes and then maybe going into the longer cuts on some of the archived full interviews that we've got in our archive. I mean, we have the best archive in the world about this medium, and I'd like to use it. Anyways, let's get going with the rundown. It looks like the once great king of the Battle Royale genre is slowly being dethroned. Yesterday, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds dropped below 1 million daily players for the first time in more than a year. That's according to the numbers from the Steam database, which show that the game saw just over 950,000 players on Monday. Battlegrounds first cracked 1 million daily players back in May 2017, making it only the second game in Steam's history to do it, the first one being Dota 2. It seems like there's an obvious reason for the drop. Yesterday happens to be when rival Activision began rolling out the beta for their own Battle Royale experience, Blackout, which is part of Call of Duty's Black Ops 4. This means Battlegrounds could see its popularity drop even further when the final version of Black Ops 4 deploys this October. The game has also seen stiff competition from other Battle Royale titles, most obviously Fortnite. That game isn't available on Steam, so it's harder to compare their daily numbers. It doesn't surprise me at all that Call of Duty is chipping away at this. There's a ton of hype, there's a ton of marketing, and there's a ton of curiosity. So far, I've heard great things about the new Blackout mode. We're going to test it out a little bit later in the episode, so stay tuned for that. But yes, we knew that this was coming. Battlegrounds is a mode. It's an amazing game, it's an amazing experience, but it is a mode in other shooters, and it will be a mode that doesn't ever go away. But now Battlegrounds, if they're going to sort of contain and that audience and sort of keep building on it, they've got to deliver a lot more content, because the other players, the Battlefields and the Call of Duties, and now Epic is all in with Fortnite. We're going to start to see this mode happen again and again. I mean, if Halo's got a Battle Royale mode, that's going to be very interesting and exciting and draw a lot of curiosity to it as well. Yeah, this mode is not going away, and Battlegrounds, congratulations. You legitimized it, you popularized it, but everybody's going to be ripping you up. I'm borrowing from your great idea. Bringing back the Kingdoms of Amalur franchise might be a little more tricky than originally thought. European gaming giant THQ Nordic has clarified the status of the Amalur IP, which they bought last week. THQ Nordic owns the rights to future games in the series, as well as any unfinished titles as expected, but when it comes to the original game, that's where things get a little complicated. Speaking with Eurogamer, THQ Nordic says that the publishing rights to the original game are still held by EA, which means that if they ever want to re-release the old game, they'll have to work out a deal. They haven't said if they plan to do this, so we'll have to wait and see. As for new games, it's a no-brainer that THQ Nordic bought the franchise in order to do something with it, so expect new titles in the coming years. My suspicion is that they've mentioned this in public, so they're already behind the scenes working out a deal with EA to bring that back. THQ Nordic has already brought back a bunch of classic games, remastered them, like the remastered edition and the Blob. I think that we are going to see Kingdoms of Amalur sort of repositioned and brought back to the other platforms. It would make a great Switch title. That would be a perfect platform, because it was like you know, opening up this expansive fantasy book, and you could carry it anywhere with you and just sort of explore. They would have to update the graphics for sure, but on the Switch, I think the expectations would be a little lower than if you were bringing something to the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. So I'm very excited about what THQ Nordic is doing. Good on you guys. It's very cool for you to find some of these old classic gems and bring them out again. Thumbs up to THQ Nordic. And EA might need all the friends that they can find right about now, because they just got themselves into a whole bunch of new trouble over loot boxes. The government of Belgium has officially launched a criminal investigation into EA over the loot boxes in FIFA 18. Earlier this year, the Belgian Gaming Commission ruled that most loot boxes do count as a form of in-game gambling, making it illegal for games that have them to be sold or marketed to children. FIFA was named specifically in the ruling, along with other big games like CSGO and Overwatch. Valve and Blizzard have already taken steps to modify their games in the country in order to comply with the ruling, but according to the Belgian newspaper Metro, EA has refused to modify FIFA 18. The matter will now go to the courts, and this might actually be what EA wants. Taking the matter before a judge will allow EA to argue their position and perhaps convince them that loot boxes aren't gambling, but there's no telling what will happen, so the plan could backfire. I guess you might call this a gamble. All this is happening as the next game in the series, FIFA 19, is launching in just 2 weeks. Yeah, this is controversy that EA doesn't need, but it's an important conversation. I think we do need to figure it out. I think that government intervention and government sort of oversight of video games is kind of a slippery slope. But yes, loot boxes have pissed a lot of people off, and a lot of people have inadvertently spent tons of money or become addicted to spending the money inside of these experiences. And all of that, education and information, I think, needs to be out in the public a lot more so that the industry improves. We're not done. The games industry is not perfect. There's a lot of things and a lot of lessons that need to be learned, and I think that there is an analogy to the loot boxes in sports games to the way that people buy packs of trading cards when you go to the store. Those usually cost $1 and you get 7. I haven't bought them in a long time, but they don't cost that much, and you get a stick of bubble gum. There's some physical thing there. With the trading cards that you get in these games, it does feel like you are on that sort of drip. You're constantly pressing that button to buy more, and you don't know what you're going to get. And maybe the answer is there's a little bit more information revealed right up front, so people know exactly what they're spending their money on. This is very interesting, and it's only going to make the industry better. I don't think the idea here is just point the finger at EA and say, you suckers. I think this is about them having this discussion, working it out, and honestly making everybody happy. That's EA's job. That's job number one. EA has pissed people off. Their job right now is to make everybody happy. They're an entertainment company that's supposed to put out joy. And for whatever reason, over the last few years, they've put out stuff that's made a lot of people angry, and I think they got to fix that. All right, if you're already finished the new Spider-Man game, developer Insomniac is staying up all night to bring you something new. Insomniac Games says they're currently working on a new Game Plus mode for Spider-Man, which will give players who finished it a reason to jump back in. What exactly will be included in the new Game Plus mode hasn't been revealed, although they typically offer more challenging difficulty and the ability to replay from the start with all of your endgame skills and gear. We'll let you know when more details come in. Spider-Man will also be getting at least 3 batches of paid DLC, offering new story content with new characters and missions, along with new Spidey suits. The first DLC chapter lands in late October. This is all fantastic news. I've been trying to kind of figure out what I want to say about finishing a game like Spider-Man, because it's such an exceptional game, and everybody that owns a PlayStation 4 has to go out and get this game. That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's a game for everyone. It's selling like crazy, but what happens, and it's kind of happened with us here a little bit, is that you finish the game, you review the game, you talk about the game, and then you move away from it. Whereas with Battlegrounds, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we've talked about that game a lot on EP, because it's a persistent thing, and that's the same case with Overwatch and Rainbow Six, and Ubi's really positioning a lot of their titles to kind of go in that direction, and that's what EA wants out of the next Star Wars, and Destiny and all that stuff. And that's not happening with single-player games. We play them, we move on, and then we hear that some awesome new DLC is out there. We talk about that for a minute, and then we move on. And I feel like with Spider-Man, and I don't want to dissuade or push you away from getting into this experience, because it's one of the most satisfying video game game experiences I've ever had. It's a fantastic game. But I feel like when you talk about endgame content and DLC, you're kind of putting a pin on it for some people out there. And Spider-Man specifically, this open world that they've created, New York City that they've created, Spider-Man's adventures all take place in this city. And when you think about it, Insomniac's done the work of creating and crafting this, so it's hard not to reconcile with the fact that you could make new episodes on a continuous basis. Instead of waiting another 2 or 3 years for Spider-Man 2, why not just constantly create a new episode or a new issue of a Spider-Man adventure with this world that they've created with a team, you know, and maybe it's every 2 months there's a new piece of content, and then another team is working on a full sequel with a larger, you know, New York that's sort of made for PlayStation 5 or something like that. When I look at a game specifically like this, you know, this is the world that Spider-Man inhabits. Just add more stories, you know, add more villains and new adventures, and we'll keep coming back for it. If I say that, though, then I feel like I'm telling people not to go for it because it's not the all-inclusive, you know, play forever type of game that you're getting out of an Overwatch or a Destiny, you know, and I feel like there's so many people that are just looking for that. But this is a way more fun game for me than jumping into Overwatch or Destiny, you know? So I'm a little conflicted, and I think that's, you know, a big chunk of what the industry is going through right now in terms of spending money on these huge AAA single-player games and investing in perpetual games like Destiny. But anyways, it's a good conversation. Let me know what you think about the Spider-Man DLC. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below or in the chat. Remember, we have Let's Play and Chat coming up a little bit later in the show. But right now, it's time for This Day and Everything Cool.